Hi. Do you remember this verse that I'm going to read you from Isaiah 33? And no resident will say, I am sick. The people that are dwelling in the land will be those pardoned for their error. And how about these verses, 5 and 6 of 35? At that time, the eyes of the blind ones will be opened, and the very ears of the deaf will be unstopped. At that time, the lame one will climb up just as a stag does, and the tongue of the speechless one will cry out in gladness. For in the wilderness waters will burst out, and torrents in the desert plain. What a nice picture.
It is.
But do we know what's around them, those verses? The context is.
Well, the first verse you read is from 33.
Yes.
The very end of 33.
Verse 24 of 33.
The last verse. And if you know the whole chapter 33, you'll know what no resident is referring to. No resident where?
Yeah.
Well, look back over the previous verses and you will see the problem. Your eyes will see the king in his beauty. Well, that's verse 17. Your eyes will see the king in his beauty. Then in verse 20, look upon Zion, the city of our appointed feasts. Your eyes shall see Jerusalem, an undisturbed habitation, a tent which shall not be folded, its stakes never pulled up, nor any cords be torn apart again. So this is again a Gentile times type. What's at the end of the Gentile times is the restoration of Zion, and it'll never be pulled up again.
Yeah, the restoring of the people.
And then finally in verse 22, the culminating verse, Jehovah is our judge, Jehovah is our lawgiver, Jehovah is our king. He will save us. So what Isaiah is anticipating is that someday in the distant future, we now know, God himself would solve the eternal spiritual and political problems of Israel. He will save us because he will take over the reins of government himself. That is where the verse 17 comes in. Your eyes will see him.
Right.
Back 24, we read that he will actually be there, seen by his elders.
Yeah.
So that's the setting of 33.
Yeah.
And then what we should note is that in 34, the chapter in between the two portions you read, 33 and 35, there's a long prophecy about Edom.
Okay.
Edom again. Why Edom? Why has it got this position? Because at the exile, Edom was the immediate neighbor of Israel that acted the most inappropriately, with the greatest hostility towards her cousin Israel.
Right. Yeah.
And Edom, and this doesn't sit very well with the idea of a global paradise, Edom is given a eternal judgment in chapter 34.
Yeah.
God has a day of vengeance, verse 8 says, a year of recompense for the cause of Zion.
Doesn't it say that it's going to be desolate?
Desolate forever, never quench the fire that will burn there day and night. Now we don't know to what extent that's future, we don't know, but it certainly doesn't
but
sit.
still saying forever. I mean, that doesn't fit with a global paradise.
Not at all.
No.
So I think we should read the verses before the familiar passage in 35 as well.
Okay. The wilderness and the waterless region will exult, and the desert plain will be joyful and blossom as the saffron region will exalt. Okay, you know what? I have to start again. The wilderness and the waterless region will exalt, and the desert plain will be joyful and blossom as the saffron. Without fail it will blossom, and it will really be joyful, with joyousness, and with glad crying out. The glory of Lebanon itself must be given to it, the splendor of Carmel and of Sharon. There will be those who will see the glory of Jehovah, the splendor of our God. Strengthen the weak hands, you people, and make the knees that are wobbling firm. Say to those who are anxious at heart, be strong and do not be afraid. Look, your own God will come with vengeance itself, God even with a repayment. He himself will come and save you people. At that time, the eyes of the blind ones will be opened, and the very ears of the deaf ones will be unstopped. At that time the lame one will climb up, just as a stag does, and the tongue of the speechless one will cry out in gladness. For in the wilderness waters will have burst out, and torrents in the desert plain.
Again, multiple problems.
Yes, lots of locations.
Lots of locations. Sharon is mentioned, the Arabah in some translations, Carmel in Lebanon. They're all mentioned in the context, so again it's localized. So if there are paradise promises, they are about the Middle East, or about Israel specifically. Mm-hmm. But then there's the frightening discord with Watchtower doctrine in verse 2. They will see the glory of Yahweh.
Yeah.
And then he will come. I think the New World Translation is even clearer. It says he himself will come. Does
he
it
himself
mean?
will come. That's what
he himself will come and save you.
People.
Who
but
is you?
we read past things like that as witnesses because we've already got it fixed in our mind what is possible and impossible.
For God, yeah.
Yeah. But it says he will come.
And then the culminating verse, verse 10, of course not in this, is not what the Watchtower wants to quote. It's the grand finale of this scenario, though, which is, and the ransomed of Yahweh will return and come with joyful shouting to Zion. Mm. With everlasting joy upon their heads they will find gladness and joy, and sorrow and sighing will flee away. All those words are familiar to us from the book of Revelation, but in Isaiah they're applied to the restoration of Zion and the remnant's return. All Israel's return to the land. And we can't get around that with any subterfuge, and I think the Watchtower knows that because they don't quote that verse. Yet it's the last verse of the prophetic portion of early Isaiah. Now from 36 to 39, the chapters are about the historical events of the days of Hezekiah.
Okay.
So in the next segment, we're going to go to
more Isaiah 44 and 45. Chapters 44 and 45.